There are a lot of conspiracy theories about 9/11, and people discuss those theories and stories behind closed doors, but no one has dared to open up about those theories so openly and so boldly as Candace Owens just did in her recently started podcast. She used to be with Ben Shapiro in Daily Wire, and I have actually made reaction video about her and you Tate. It was a very great interview. The thing I like about Candace is that she is a woman, but she's very smart, really bold, outspoken, and opinionated. So we know exactly where she stands.
I mean, if you're a millennial like me, the terrorist attack left an indelible mark upon your childhood. I know exactly where I was. I will never forget it. I was sitting in music class in my middle school.
If those of you who were alive, because there's a generation now who, like my daughter, it happened before they were born, so they don't even know, but we have experienced it. It was definitely, there was a life before 9/11 and there's a life after 9/11. I remember exactly, I was in one of the universities. I came here very recently and everyone around me was American. I was the only foreign person there and the news was on TV. Everyone was watching the news. I felt so foreign and so out of place and so embarrassed that I just wanted to like the ground to open and me to get buried inside so I don't have to face anyone, because people were looking at me with very weird eyes and I can just feel tension in the room. I still remember it exactly. It was very uncomfortable moment for me.
Principal came over the speaker and said, a plane has hit a tower in New York City. And I will never forget what my music teacher said, Mr. Gregory. He said, why are they interrupting class to tell us this? And then some time passed and they interrupted again over the speakerphone and said a second.
I remember the same year, I was in one of the rotations and attending were watching TV and everyone was like just stopping whatever they were doing. Of course, very major events. So people were stopping everything they were doing and watching TV.
Second plane has hit a tower in New York City. And I want to be clear, I'm from Stamford, Connecticut, which means that many of the parents worked in New York City. It's very close, Stamford to New York City. They'd wake up, they'd take the train, and they would go to the city.
I do remember one of the other students, he was white, and he asked me, do people in Pakistan really hate America, or do they really hate Americans? And it was just very I just didn't know how to answer it, because most humans, we don't hate each other. Basically, it's politics that portray us in a way that people start or countries start to dislike each other. Otherwise, humans don't dislike each other or don't hate each other. But of course, this is a very unpopular opinion.
Around televisions, waiting for the news to be updated minute by minute. In my household, we had one of those big, clunky.
I remember too, we would just go to school, college, and then just come home and be glued to TV and see what's going on.
Rather unfashionable big screen TVs, and we just sat there and watched. And I want to be clear, this was
flat TVs. They were really bulky TVs.
And in the time before smartphones. There were no independent media voices that were offering reports. There was no Twitter. There was no social media on Instagram. And I think now, obviously, we appreciate how significant independent voices are.
I definitely agree with that, because during that time, it's just news. We either CNN News or Fox News. Of course, they have different political agendas and the news is a little different, but that's all you can watch. Or if sometimes we would even tune into Al Jazeera, which would give Middle Eastern news, but there was no social media, and that's why right now what's going on between Palestine and Israel, it's so different, because we are not relying on news. No one is watching news. Everyone is watching independent influencers or independent social media people, and even people right from Israel and Palestine. There are Instagram channel of people from Gaza that other people are watching, and there's so much more awareness of what actually is going on. So this time it's very different. We always say social media is bad, but this is something good about social media, because with news channels, they just have agendas. And I'm going to share more of my experience and how my eyes were completely opened about the news channels and I stopped watching news. So let's watch some more and I'm going to share.
Especially in times of high confusion. I mean, from COVID vaccines to Russia collusion, we now very much understand that the mainstream.
She also have very specific views about COVID vaccine, and if I have time, I'm going to make a reaction video on her interview that Piers Morgan did on his channel, and it's amazing. I just missed it because I was out of town, but she shared her opinion about COVID vaccine. She is extreme right-wing, so her opinions are very on one end. I do agree with her to some extent, but I do disagree with her to some extent too.
Is capable of getting it wrong and also capable of telling massive lies.
I actually do agree with it a lot.
So it immediately followed the September 11th terrorist attack.
So because I have personally experienced it, I have seen it, and I'm going to share my experience.
As I reflect upon it in the retrospect, now that I'm an adult, a married mother, 35 years old, and my brain is developed, I recognize Soviet tactics of brainwashing that took place thereafter. I mean, every day, I was an 11-year-old child, 12-year-old child, we were being told to stand for a moment of silence at 9:11 a.m. So picture little kids, 10, 11, 12, standing up for a moment of silence. And then over the speakerphone, they would tell us to think about and to remember the people that had died.
Yeah, all those things. And I do remember because I was adult at that time, and I do remember that America became very patriarchal, and that happens. Of course, America was under attack, so they came very close and became patriarchal. However, on the flip side, there were some hate crimes that happened against Muslims. And I do remember I was living in Ohio at that time, and there was a hate crime at like one of these stores of Sikh people. So if you know that Sikh people, men covered their hair, and Osama bin Laden and all those Arab guys, they covered their hair, and ethnicities, both of them, or religious groups, they have long beards too. So they destroyed the store of a Sikh man who has nothing to do with all of this, who was not even Muslim, and just as a hate crime, and because they thought he was resembling Osama bin Laden, he was in the same like religious group. And even Muslims, like I remember women were scared to wear hijab when they were going for groceries, and some women just stopped wearing hijab because they were so scrutinized and hated. So that was a very difficult time to be Muslim in America, and I've experienced that time. We just kept on the very low, and we tried, because of course we are living here, we are patriarchal too, but we were in a very difficult position. We were kind of alienated, and even I personally, thank God, I personally didn't experience any hate crime, but I know people who have experienced hate crime. So it was just a very difficult moment to be Muslim at that time. I do believe a lot of people became closer to their religion. A lot of Muslims became more closer to their religion. That happens out of defensiveness. They become closer to their religion, which is a common psychological reaction.
Every day at 9:11 a.m. A couple of years later, I entered high school, and my older sister's boyfriend made me watch a documentary. It was called Loose Change. I will never forget it. Never, ever forget it. I came out of watching that documentary, which I think if you looked it up today, it would say conspiracy theories about 9/11. But irrespective of how they want to categorize it,
I didn't watch it, but I've heard so many conspiracy theories.
At the very least, you came out of it recognizing that not everything was told to the public about that day. Don't need to go too far, but there's no question that we were not told everything about that day.
This is very common in politics, and it's like in every country. America is a very democratic country, but still things happen, like she's saying this. So politics is not very innocent or very naive. There is always dirty politics, and it was a very highly political time. America was in war with Afghanistan during that time. So what she is saying, her experience is that she watched that documentary. My experience is that I was, of course, like she's saying, brainwashing. News is a way to brainwash people, and thankfully now we don't rely only on news. We watch different perspectives on social media from different backgrounds, from all over the world from different countries. Everything is available to you, and that is so helpful that to prevent us from brainwashing. It was my experience that of course I was watching news here and I have a certain mindset because you just get brainwashed. I have a certain mindset because of all the news I was watching. Then I visited Pakistan. It was within 6 months of 9/11, and I was shocked. Over there, it was a completely different news, and of course people were brainwashed over there from the news they were watching. And I used to argue with them because my mindset was an American mindset, because I was watching news here and they didn't even believe that Osama bin Laden did all this. It was really shocking. I didn't know what is true because the news over there was, of course, Pakistani news, BBC, that's the news they watch usually, and Al Jazeera, those are very popular channels. They were completely different theory about 9/11. At that time, I knew that we all are brainwashed and truth is something different. We just don't know what is true. What is the truth? Their truth is what their news is showing us, it's showing them, and our truth is what we are watching. So after that, I literally lost all trust in news and I stopped watching news.
Don't need to go too far, but there's no question that we were not told everything about that day and that many questions were not being answered. I mean, some of the things that we were even told make entirely no sense. For example, we were told that the terrorist attacks were executed by the Saudis, remember? Which totally explains why we then decided to go to war with Iraq, who had weapons of mass destruction that were never found.
And to this day, I don't understand why we went to war with Iraq. They were saying it was weapon of mass destruction because Iraq never threatened America. So we went there because US thought that's what we were told, that they were weapons of mass destruction that was never found. So I have a story about that too. In one of my rotation, and we were sitting at a dinner. It was like a dinner for students. So there were all the attendings, their husbands, wives, all of them were sitting. There were some students too. And everyone was white except me, and there was another friend of mine, and we both were Muslims. So then they really put us on spot, and I don't know why they did it, because they knew everyone else is agreeing on the war. So they asked everyone, do you think America should go after Iraq, and should we have a war with Iraq? So they were asking everyone, and they were like, absolutely, yes, we should, this, that. Everyone was anonymously yes. And then they came to my friend and she said, no, I don't know what reason she gave that we shouldn't go. And then they came to me and I said, I just don't believe in war. I think peace is the answer and war and hate is not the answer. So that was my answer, and that's what I believe in. It's a very unpopular opinion. People don't believe in that. They love to get polarized and they want negativity and they want to division. But human being deep down, we just love each other. I know there's so much political issues going on between Pakistan and India always, but here in US I have so many really good Indian friends and we don't think about politics. Same with Bangladesh. We, like Pakistan and Bangladesh, we got divided and it was in really horrible circumstances, but I have some really close friends who are from Bangladesh. Again, Israel and Palestine, they are at war for so long. Like there's so much tension between Muslims and Jews, but here I have some really good Jewish friends. So I just don't believe in this division. I don't believe hate is the answer. Love is the answer, peace is the answer, but again, it's a very unpopular opinion and most people don't like this opinion. I just believe that governments do it, they have different agendas and it's all politics, and we people, we get affected and we are the one who suffer and we are the one who have to give sacrifices.
And who can forget how the newscasters told the public that they were definitely sure that it was the Saudis? Don't remember? Let's revisit it. Let's go back to 2001 and watch this clip from our trusted news source.
It's like 24 years ago. Wow.
CNN. Take a listen.
Another development on Saturday, New York officials revealed at a news conference here in the city that a hijacker's passport was found blocks from the World Trade Center crash site, if you can believe that. No other details were given, but the discovery prompted the FBI and police to expand the search area down in Lower Manhattan.
I like how even the newscaster says, if you can believe that, because nope, I refuse to believe that, and you should not either. You are telling me that somebody hijacked a plane, got onto the plane, crashed the plane exploded into fire, tower collapsed. They could not even find all of the human remains. But in all of this, in all of the fire, in the collapse of the building, and all the dust, in all the struggle, they found, and didn't give any details of how or who found it, a passport. The little paper passport survived everything.
There's no reasonable logical explanation for that, and she is correct.
And they go, oh, well, look, this is one of the hijackers. This is one of the Saudi hijackers. He must have dropped his passport from the sky.
Now the things she will say is, I haven't seen people say this loudly and boldly on social media. A lot of people are thinking about it. There are a lot of different conspiracy theories, so let's hear.
Then, of course, there are those who believe that 9/11 was an inside job, a false flag event. And those people are deemed the craziest because how dare they? How dare they question that narrative? How dare you think that your government could be involved in a false flag attack at all? Well, let me tell you something, sweetheart. You don't have to believe that 9/11 was an inside job, but you better tether yourself to the understanding that false flag events are a reality.
It is. I definitely believe that. I'm not saying 9/11 was it, but these kind of events are very possible because I just don't think politics or political leaders have the best interest of people in their mind. If they do, we won't be suffering like that.
Not an imagination, not a conspiracy theory. It is a reality. And you want to know how we know that? Well, you can just look this up on Wikipedia if you don't believe me. Because a former sitting president who was subsequently assassinated in the back of a car next to his wife, JFK, he refused to sign off on a false flag event. The CIA came to him. This is called Operation Northwoods. You should look this up if you think.
That's very shocking. I did not know that.
And I'm making this up. The CIA came to JFK and they said, we have an operation. We want to go to war with Cuba. Okay? And he said, we have some ideas of how we're going to get the American public on our side, how we're going to get public sentiment to shift so that they want war.
Definitely. Then they get sympathy and there is a reason to go to war. So that's making logical sense.
Incredibly suspicious during 9/11, shortly thereafter, when this segment ran, also back.
Okay, so I was not even aware of it. I have heard theories like that, but this is very interesting.
In 2002 on ABC News as an update to a prior segment that they had done. Take a listen.
In the days after the September attacks, there were countless rumors about strange coincidences surrounding the events. One report about a group of Middle Eastern men spotted the morning of September 11th parked just across the river from New York City has not gone away. Investigation of their presence has led to questions about whether Israel was conducting espionage on U.S. soil. We're joined now by ABC's John Miller with an exclusive report this evening.
That's right, Elizabeth. This is a case that took the FBI and the CIA more than 2 months to sort out, while 5 Israelis waited in jail. It began when this woman was watching the Twin Towers burning from her apartment in New Jersey. She noticed 3 men on top of a van, posing for pictures with the towers burning in the background.
And I could see that they were like happy, you know, they
Wow. So they were celebrating.
they didn't look shocked to me, you know, they didn't look shocked. I thought it was very strange.
The witness called police, who stopped the van hours later and arrested 5 men. All 5, it turns out, were Israeli. They were turned over to the FBI.
Wow. I'm not aware of this.
Sources tell ABC News during a check of national security databases, some of the men were listed as having had connections with Israeli intelligence. At the FBI, that set off alarm bells. The FBI needed the answers to 3 important questions. Who were these men? What brought them to that parking lot on the morning of September 11th? And did they have any advance knowledge of what was going to happen that day? The men said they were just taking pictures at the time. They said they worked for a company called Urban Moving. The FBI obtained a search warrant for the company's offices.
2 SUVs were filled up with between 9 and 12 boxes and computers.
Not long after the arrests, the offices of Urban Moving were simply abandoned. Almost everything was left behind.
Wow, that's insane.
In jail, the 5 Israelis were repeatedly interrogated and given lie detector tests. Stephen Gordon was their American lawyer.
They were asked questions if they had ever been approached by or hired by any non-United States intelligence community.
While there is still some debate among American intelligence officials, many investigators believe some of the men were part of an Israeli operation aimed at monitoring radical Islamic charities that support groups like Hamas, something lawyers for the 5 men and the Israeli government strongly deny.
These 5 Israelis were not involved in any intelligence operation in the United States. The story is simply false.
In the end, the FBI concluded there was no evidence that any of the 5 men had advance knowledge of the September 11th plot. After 71 days, the 5 Israelis were deported, leaving some ruffled feathers among both U.S. and Israeli officials.
I am not aware of that.
All right, guys, so nothing to see there. Obviously, you'd be a conspiracy theorist if you had any questions about that. You actually would be worse. You'd probably be anti-Semite if you had any questions about a foreign government overseas that had people who were attached to their intelligence apparatus who were celebrating and taking photos.
That's just insane that anyone could be celebrating this kind of destruction. There are people like that, but it's very, very difficult to digest. And especially America, like who's Israel's biggest ally, and them, like Israeli people, to be celebrating those 5 people. I'm pretty sure it must be very hurtful.
As the towers burned and American citizens were dying. Yeah, don't be any of those things.
That's why she's being so sarcastic. She's been accused of being anti-Semitic, and there's a popular opinion that that's why she got fired from Daily Wire. Of course, no one has confirmed it, neither she nor Ben Shapiro, but she has made actually a video of one of the rabbi, and I have made a reaction video on that too. It was a very interesting video, and she was vocal, not this vocal, but she was pretty vocal. That's what everyone is assuming, that that's why she got fired, because she got fired right after that. Anyways, let's see if she has anything more to say.
Talking about this, well, we're talking about it first and foremost because America forever changed after 9/11. We, in my view,
forever changed.
Stopped being a free country. For fear, we gave up freedom. It's really difficult to imagine the world prior to 9/11. Imagine people that were just able to go to the airport, were not treated like they had done something wrong, didn't have to take their belts off and their shoes off and their quarters out of their pockets, and they just simply got on the plane.
It used to be a really fun experience going to flying. It was very fun experience before people, like nothing was checked. You just go to the plane. Security was nothing like this. And now security thing is so big. And of course it has raised the cost of flights. Whenever you are flying, you can see the taxes. Flight will be $150 and taxes and additional cost will be $100 to $150. Cost of flying has skyrocketed. Like they used to all serve better things like food and drinks, and they are becoming very frugal.
We don't have it anymore. In fact, they collect even more information. Now they want to take your photo. We're all a suspect now. They essentially used our paralyzing fear and the media and the school system, stand up, the indoctrination, remember the people that died, to jam through the Patriot Act. We're also talking about this because they used that same fear to throw us into more endless wars in the Middle East. And if you remember,
and all these wars are costing American people. The rate of homelessness is skyrocketing. It's just so sad to see so many homeless people. I work in a hospital. I see like so many homeless people. My heart goes out to them, but there are not too many shelters. Medications, older people. I don't deal that much with older people, but when I was in training, when I did my rotation and I see like older people, it's just so sad that they don't even have money to pay for their very important medications because they are so expensive. It's really, really sad. We are spending so much on healthcare and people are not getting what they should be getting. Taxes are so high, but rate of homelessness is just going through the roof. Mental health is declining. So many people are committing suicide. It's just really bad, and that's what happens when you invest that much money in war.
Tactics, as vividly as I do, then you might be looking around and recognizing a very familiar playbook. You're a terrorist sympathizer if you don't like bombs and war and dead people and, my gosh, the Muslims, they're bad. Yeah, no, I'm none of those things. What I am actually
Thank you, Candace. I really respect you for that. Thank you.
Is an American, and I have questions.
Me as Muslim living in America, we dealt with this label of terrorism for so long. It's actually very hurtful, but there are people who are very accepting, and that's why I'm like literally saying thank you from bottom of my heart to Candace for saying this.
Speech is still free in this country. I intend on asking them, because what could possibly be more American than that?
It was a very, very deep, thought-provoking segment. So I have to make a reaction to this. I hope you enjoy it. Please let me know in the comment section your views, and I will see you next time.